Rome, November 18th, 1963. Teresa Lombardi had just realized there were only 5 days left until November 23rd, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she'd lost something she could never get back. Because Padre Pio had warned her. November 23rd would be the most powerful day of the year before Christmas, and she hadn't done a thing to prepare. What you're about to discover in the next few minutes isn't just Teresa's story. It's the secret protocol Padre Pio revealed to those who wake up too late. The 5-day urgent Novena the Vatican has kept silent about for decades. Because there's a fear that paralyzes us all. The fear of being unprepared when divine grace manifests. The fear of seeing the heavenly door open and not having the key. The fear of arriving late to the most significant spiritual moment of the year. Do you feel that now? That sense that something important is coming and you're not ready? That anguish that the days are slipping away and you haven't even started? Then you need to know exactly what Teresa discovered that November 18th. Because today is November 18th, and in 5 days it will be November 23rd. And what you do in the next few hours will determine whether you enter prepared or are left outside looking in. Teresa Lombardi was 38 years old when she woke up that morning of November 18th in Rome. She was a catechist at St. Mary's Parish in Trastevere. She knew the scriptures by heart. She'd been praying the Rosary every day for 20 years. But there was something she didn't know, something Padre Pio had revealed only to a few. November 23rd wasn't just any day. It was the one day of the year when the distance between heaven and earth became so thin that you could touch the divine with your own hands. She discovered this by accident. She was organizing the books in the vestry when she found a letter. A handwritten letter from Brother John, a Capuchin friar who had visited San Giovanni Rotondo in 1958. The letter was 5 pages long, but Teresa didn't need to read past the first line to feel her blood run cold. It read, "Today, Padre Pio revealed to me that November 23rd is the door. Whoever enters prepared will receive what they ask for. Whoever enters unprepared will lose the only chance of the year." Teresa glanced at the calendar on the wall. It was the 18th. 5 days left. Only 5 days. And she hadn't done anything. She hadn't fasted. She hadn't confessed. She hadn't consecrated the preceding days. Nothing. She felt her chest tighten. That feeling you get when you arrive at the train station and see the train leaving the station. That certainty that you've lost something irretrievable. She ran to Father Anthony, the parish priest, showed him the letter. He read it slowly, and when he finished, he took off his glasses and said something Teresa would never forget. "My daughter, I know this letter. Brother John was my brother. He died peacefully in 1960. 2 years after writing this, and he told me something that's not in the letter. Padre Pio gave him a protocol for those who wake up late, for those who discover it at the last moment, a 5-day urgent novena." Teresa sat down. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. An urgent novena? Did that even exist? Father Anthony opened the desk drawer, pulled out a small black-covered notebook, and said, "Brother John gave me this before he died. Inside is everything, what Padre Pio taught him. But there's a condition. This novena isn't for those who just want to experiment. It's for those who really need it, for those who have an impossible request, for those who know that if it doesn't happen on the 23rd, it might never happen. Do you have something like that?" Teresa closed her eyes. Yes, she did. Her husband Joseph had been in a coma for 3 months. A work accident. The doctors had said there was nothing more to be done, that it was a matter of days. Teresa had prayed every rosary possible, had lit every candle, had visited all the relics in Rome, But Joseph remained there, trapped between life and death, and she knew deep in her soul that if something didn't happen soon, she would lose him forever. She opened her eyes and said, "I do." Father Anthony nodded. "Then you can take it. But listen carefully, this novena has a cost. It's not money. It's renunciation, 5 days of total renunciation, fasting, silence, uninterrupted prayer. You can't give up halfway through. If you start and stop, it's worse than not having started, because you open the spiritual door but don't close it. And what enters through it isn't what you want." Teresa took the notebook. It was heavy, too heavy for something so small. She went back home, locked the door, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the notebook. The first page had only one sentence written by Brother John. And the sentence said, "San Giovanni Rotondo, October 28, 1958. Padre Pio held me by the arm and said, 'John, a time will come when many will wake up late. Write this down for them.'" Teresa turned the page, and there it was, the complete protocol. Written in detail, 7 steps, each step with precise instructions, each instruction with a why. And at the top of the page, in capital letters, 5-day urgent novena for November 23rd. Only for those who discover it late. Only for those with an impossible request. She began to read, and the more she read, the more she understood. It wasn't an ordinary novena. It was a spiritual compression, as if it took 9 days of grace and condensed them into 5. But the cost was proportional, because accelerated grace demands accelerated sacrifice. And Padre Pio had made that very clear in the protocol. First step, confess everything, not just recent sins, everything, from childhood. From the first impure thought, from the first lie, everything, and write it on a piece of paper, because writing makes it real. It takes it out of the fog of memory and puts it in the light of consciousness. Teresa grabbed a pen and began to write. It took 3 hours. When she finished, she had 4 pages of handwritten confession, and she wept. Wept because she didn't know she was carrying so much weight. Second step, burn the paper. Take it to a church. Hold it over a blessed candle and watch it burn completely, without saving any pieces, without trying to salvage anything. Because fire is mercy. Fire doesn't judge. Fire only transforms. Teresa left home at 4 in the afternoon, went to St. Mary's Church in Trastevere, lit a blessed candle on the side altar, and held the paper over the flame. The words began to darken, then to curl, then to disappear. And when the last word turned to ashes, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Lightness, as if she had taken off a wet coat she hadn't even realized she was wearing. Third step, fast in a specific way. It wasn't a complete fast. It was a strategic fast. Padre Pio explained to Brother John that there are 3 kinds of hunger. The hunger of the body, the hunger of the soul, and the hunger of the spirit. The body needs bread. The soul needs meaning. The spirit needs presence. Therefore, fasting must address all 3. For the body, only bread and water, once a day, at sunset. For the soul, complete silence, no unnecessary conversations, no television, no radio, only the essential. For the spirit, surrender of control, not planning the next day, not anticipating, not calculating, just living hour by hour. Abigail read this and she felt fear, because she was a control freak. She planned everything. Even the route she would take to the hospital to visit Joseph, she always knew what was coming next. But now, Padre Pio was asking her to let go, to trust, to allow the divine to guide each hour without knowing where it would lead. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I accept." And at that moment, something changed in the air. It wasn't a sound, it wasn't a light. It was a presence, as if someone had entered the room and stood beside her. She didn't open her eyes. She knew that if she did, she wouldn't see anything because it wasn't meant to be seen. It was meant to be felt. And she felt it. She felt that she was no longer alone, that something had been activated, that the 5-day urgent novena had begun. 4th step, pray the rosary differently, not the entire rosary, but a concentrated rosary. 15 Hail Marys, 1 for each year that Mary walked on earth before the Annunciation, but each Hail Mary had to last 3 minutes. 3 whole minutes. Repeating slowly, word by word, syllable by syllable, until each word lost its automatic meaning and gained real presence. Abigail picked up the rosary. It was the rosary she had received from her grandmother when she made her first communion. A rosary made of olive wood from Jerusalem. She held the first bead and began. Hail Mary, full of grace. She spoke slowly, so slowly that she could feel each word touching a different place in her chest. The Lord is with thee. And there, in that word, with thee, she felt it. She felt that she wasn't saying it to the air. She was saying it to someone who was really there. With thee, with you, with her, with Abigail, at that moment, in that kitchen, on that November 18th. It took her 45 minutes to pray the 15 Hail Marys. When she finished, it was 7 o'clock in the evening, and she was different. It wasn't euphoria. It wasn't emotion. It was something deeper. It was certainty. Certainty that something had been planted, something she couldn't see yet. But that was growing. 5th step, choose 3 impossibilities, not 2, not 4, 3. Because 3 is the number of the Trinity. 3 is the number of completeness. 3 is the number of resurrection. And write each impossibility in a sentence. 1 sentence only. No explanation, no context. Just the naked, raw request. Abigail picked up another piece of paper and wrote, First impossibility, Joseph awakens from the coma. Second impossibility, the marriage that died is resurrected. Third impossibility, I become the woman God intended me to be. She looked at what she had written, and she realized that the 3 impossibilities were actually just 1, because if Joseph woke up, but the marriage was dead, it was no use. And if the marriage was healed, but she remained the same proud and controlling Abigail, it would only be a matter of time before everything fell apart again. The 3 impossibilities had to happen together, or it didn't make sense for any of them to happen. 6th step, place the 3 impossibilities inside an envelope, seal it, and sleep with the envelope under your pillow for the 5 days, because sleep is prayer, sleep is surrender. Sleep is when the ego rests and the spirit works. Padre Pio had said to Brother John, the greatest spiritual battles happen while we sleep. It is there that we truly decide, because there we have no mask. Abigail placed the paper inside a white envelope, sealed it with red wax, and went up to the bedroom. She placed the envelope under the pillow, laid down, and something strange happened. She couldn't sleep. It wasn't insomnia. It was vigilance. As if something inside her was awake, even though her body was lying down. And then she heard it. She heard a voice. It wasn't external. It was internal. But it wasn't her voice. It was another. And the voice said, Abigail, you asked for 3 impossibilities, but are you willing to pay 3 surrenders? She sat up in bed, her heart beating fast. 3 surrenders? What surrenders? And the voice continued, First surrender. Surrender your certainty that you know how things should be. Second surrender. Surrender your right to understand before you obey. Third surrender. Surrender your need to receive before you give. Abigail understood. Padre Pio wasn't just asking for fasting and prayer. He was asking for transformation. He was asking her to die to the old Abigail and be born into a new one. And that wouldn't happen in 5 days. That would happen now, at that moment. If she said yes, she took a deep breath and whispered in the dark, "I surrender. I surrender all three." And it was as if something broke inside her, something hard, something that had been there for so long that she thought it was part of her. But it wasn't. It was just crystallized fear. And now it was breaking. Seventh step. Visit a different church each day. 5 days, 5 churches, and in each church do the same thing. Enter in silence. Go to the Blessed Sacrament, kneel, and stay there for exactly 23 minutes. So 23, because of November 23rd. But it wasn't to pray word, it was just to be present, to be vulnerable, to be available. Abigail read this and frowned. 23 minutes of total silence, without praying anything, that seemed wrong. It seemed empty, like a waste of time. But then she remembered what Padre Pio had said in one of his most famous quotes, "Prayer is our breath. If you only speak, you are hyperventilating. Sometimes you just need to inhale and hold it." That was it. The 23 minutes were to inhale, to receive, to stop asking and start listening, because maybe God had already answered, and she hadn't stopped to listen. Now you need to understand something that few know. Padre Pio didn't create this 5-day urgent novena out of thin air. He received it in a bilocation. It was on the night of November 22nd, 1957. He was in his cell praying when suddenly he felt that he was no longer there. He was somewhere else, a place he later described as being between time. It wasn't the past. It wasn't the future. It was a crack where the eternal touched the temporal, and there, in that crack, he saw. He saw thousands of desperate souls who had woken up too late, souls who had discovered at the last moment that there was a door, but the door was closing, and they were on the outside. And the weeping of those souls was so profound that Padre Pio fell to his knees and cried out, "Lord, there has to be a way. There has to be mercy for those who awaken late." And then she appeared. Our Lady appeared, clothed in white with a blue mantle. And she said to Padre Pio something that would change everything. She said, "Pio, the door is never completely closed. There is always a crack for those willing to become small enough to pass through. And I will show you how to prepare these souls, how to compress them, how to refine them in 5 days so that they can fit through that crack." And it was there that Our Lady taught him. She taught the 7 steps. She taught the 3-fold fast. She taught the 3-minute rosary. She taught him everything. And when she finished, she said, "But listen carefully, Pio. This novena is not for everyone. It is only for those who have faith the size of a mustard seed, because that is the smallest faith that exists, and precisely because it is so small, it fits anywhere, even in the crack." Padre Pio returned to his cell. It was dawning. It was November 23rd, and he felt it. He felt that something had changed in the spiritual world. A new mercy had been released, a last-minute mercy, and he knew that he would have to guard it carefully. Because mercy in the wrong hands becomes presumption, and presumption is the last sin before the fall. That's why he only told a few people, Brother John, Brother Alex, 2 nuns who worked at the Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza hospital, and no one else. And he made them all swear that they would only teach it to those who really needed it, to those who had an impossible request, to those who were willing to pay the price of transformation. Teresa didn't know this when she started, but she was about to find out, because on the second day of the 5-day urgent novena, something would happen that would change everything, something that would make her understand why Padre Pio had been so careful, why this novena was so powerful, and why it could not be taught lightly. It was November 19th, the second day. Teresa woke up at 5 in the morning. It was still dark. She had only slept 3 hours, but she wasn't tired. She was alert, as if something inside her was vibrating at a different frequency. She went downstairs to the kitchen, drank a glass of water, and grabbed Brother John's notebook. She had to choose the second church, the second of the 5. The protocol stated that the churches had to be chosen in a specific way. It couldn't be random. First church, dedicated to Mary. Second church, dedicated to the martyrs. Third church, dedicated to the apostles. Fourth church, dedicated to the angels. Fifth church, dedicated to the Blessed Sacrament. It was a progression, an ascent. It started with Mary because she is the ladder. It passed through the martyrs because they are the proof. It passed through the apostles because they are the sending. It passed through the angels because they are the protection. And it ended in the Blessed Sacrament because he is the destination. Teresa had chosen St. Mary's Parish in Trastevere for the first day. Today would be the church of St. Cecilia, the church of the martyrs. She left the house at 6 in the morning. The streets of Rome were empty, just some bus drivers and bakers heading to work. She walked slowly, because the protocol also said do not run, do not be in a hurry. The urgency is in the commitment, not in the speed. She arrived at the Church of St. Cecilia at 6:30. The door was open. It always was. Rome doesn't lock its churches. She went in. The silence was so dense that it felt solid. She walked to the Blessed Sacrament, knelt down, looked at the clock. 6:34. She would stay there until 6:57. 23 minutes, exactly. She closed her eyes and began to do nothing, to just be. And it was difficult, so difficult that it hurt. Because the mind doesn't stop. The mind wants to plan, wants to solve, wants to escape. But Teresa forced it. She forced her mind to be quiet, and after 5 minutes something started to happen. A thought came, but it wasn't her thought. It was different. It was as if someone was putting a thought inside her head. The thought said, Joseph is not in a coma. Joseph is choosing. She opened her eyes suddenly. What? Choosing? Choosing what? And the thought continued. He is choosing between returning or leaving, and you need to let him be free to choose, because the love that binds is not love, it's fear. Teresa felt warm tears streaming down her face. No, she didn't want to let him go. She wanted him to come back. She needed him to come back. But the thought didn't stop. If you keep holding on, he can't choose. You need to let go. You need to say that you accept any choice he makes. Only then will he be truly free. And only in freedom is there life. She put her face in her hands and wept. Wept as she hadn't wept since she was 10 years old. Wept because she knew it was true. Knew that she had spent 3 months in the hospital, not just visiting Joseph, but demanding of him, demanding that he come back, demanding that he fight, demanding that he not leave her, and maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what was trapping him between the two worlds. She looked at the Blessed Sacrament and whispered, I release him, I release Joseph. If he wants to stay, I accept it. If he wants to leave, I accept it. He is free. And when she said that, something physical happened in her chest. something released. Like a knot that had been so tight for so long that she didn't even remember what it was like to breathe without it. And now the air entered differently. She looked at the clock. 6:57. 23 minutes, exactly. She got up, left the church. And when she stepped into the street, the sun was rising, and the sky was pink. That pink that only exists for 3 minutes at dawn. And she knew. She knew that something had changed. Not out there, but inside her. But the novena still had 3 days ahead, and each day would be more difficult than the last, because Padre Pio had warned him, had warned Brother John. The 5-day urgent novena is not a smooth ascent. It is a steep ladder. Each step requires more, because you are not just preparing yourself, you are being transformed, and transformation hurts. November 20th, 3rd day. Teresa woke up with a pain in her chest. It wasn't physical. It was spiritual. It was as if something was being torn from inside her, and she knew what it was. It was attachment to her version of the story, attachment to the ending she had planned, attachment to control. The third church was St. John Lateran, the Church of the Apostles. She got there at 7 in the morning. It was cold, a November cold that cuts the skin. She went in, went to the Blessed Sacrament, knelt down, and began the 23 minutes. But this time it was different, because this time she didn't resist. She let the pain come, she let the fear come, she let everything come, and just watched, as if she were seeing it from the outside. And in the midst of that observation, she heard again. She heard the voice, and the voice said, "Teresa, you asked for 3 impossible things. But do you know what the real impossible thing is? It's not Joseph waking up. It's not the marriage being healed. The truly impossible thing is for you to accept that I know better than you, that my plans are bigger than yours, that my mercy cannot fit into your understanding." Teresa opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out, because there was nothing to say. The voice was right. She had asked for 3 impossible things, but she was dictating how those impossible things should happen. She was saying, "God, do the impossible, but do it my way." And that wasn't faith. That was negotiation. She closed her eyes again and whispered, "Then I renounce the way too, not just the outcome, but the way. Do it as you want, in the way that you want, at the time that you want. I trust." And when she said that, the pain in her chest stopped, simply stopped, as if it had been sucked out. She looked at the clock. 23 minutes. She stood up, and as she turned to leave, she saw something that made her stop. She saw a woman kneeling in front of another image, crying softly but deeply, and Teresa felt it. She felt that that woman was where she had been 3 days ago, desperate, grasping, drowning. She walked to the woman, touched her shoulder. The woman looked up, eyes red. And Teresa said, "Are you doing the 5-day urgent novena?" The woman's eyes widened. "How do you know?" Teresa smiled. "Because I am too. I'm on the 3rd day, and it's hard. But it works, not in the way we want it to, but in the way it needs to be." The woman wiped away her tears and said, "My name is Lucy. My daughter has leukemia. The doctors gave her 3 months. I found a notebook about the 5-day urgent novena. I started yesterday." Teresa nodded. "Then tomorrow you will be on the 3rd day, the hardest day, the day where you have to let go." The woman looked at Teresa. "Let go? Let go how?" Teresa held her hand. "Let go of control, let go of the way, Let go of even the result, because only when you let go can God take over. The two stayed there, in silence. Two women, two novenas, two impossibilities, and the same surrender. And Teresa understood something. She understood that she wasn't doing the novena just for herself. She was doing it for all the Teresas in the world, for all the Lucys, for all those who wake up late and need urgent mercy. She left the church, and for the first time in 3 days ate something other than bread and water, because the protocol said, on the 3rd day, break the fast for 2 hours, eat something that you love, something that brings joy, because I am not a God of deprivation. I am a God of celebration, and you need to remember that. Teresa went to a bakery, bought a cream-filled donut, sat on a bench in Times Square, and ate slowly, very slowly, savoring every bite. And as she ate, she cried with gratitude, because she realized that even without having the answer yet, even without knowing if Joseph would wake up, she had already received something. She had received peace, and peace is the first miracle, because without peace, no other miracle can fit. November 21st, 4th day. Teresa woke up different, woke up light. As if she had slept for 3 days straight, picked up the notebook. The 4th church was St. Mary of the Angels, the church of angelic protection. She arrived at 6 in the morning. The sun hadn't risen yet, entered, and felt something different in the air, as if there were more people there than she could see, as if the church was full of invisible presences. She knelt and started the 23 minutes, but this time no thought came, no voice came. Vision came. It wasn't an external vision, it was internal, but so clear that it seemed real. She saw Joseph, saw him lying in the hospital bed, but he wasn't alone. There was someone next to him, someone dressed in white, an angel, and the angel was holding Joseph's hand and was saying something to him. She couldn't hear, but saw the angel's lips moving. And then the vision changed. She saw herself in the future, a near future. She was at home, cooking, and there was someone at the table, Joseph awake, Joseph alive, Joseph smiling. And he was saying something about an angel, something about a choice. And she was listening, and was understanding, and was forgiving. The vision disappeared. Teresa opened her eyes. She was trembling, not from fear, from certainty, because that wasn't imagination, that was revelation. Joseph was going to wake up. Not because she had prayed right, not because she had done the novena, but because it was the time. It was simply the time. And God was just waiting for her to stop getting in the way with her despair. She looked at the clock. 23 minutes. She stood up, and when she left the church, she saw a man, an old man, sitting on the steps. He looked at her and said, "You saw it, didn't you?" Teresa stopped. Saw what? The man smiled. Saw the future. It happens on the 4th day. It always happens. It's when faith turns into certainty. It's when hope turns into knowledge. You are the 14th person I've seen leave this church with that face. Teresa approached. "Who are you?" The man stood up. "My name is Alex, Brother Alex. I knew Padre Pio. He taught me the urgent novena in 1960. I was losing my faith, was about to leave the order. And he said to me, 'Alex, do the novena, and you will see.' And I did, and I saw, and I stayed. I stayed because I understood that Christianity isn't about believing in what you don't see. It's about seeing what others don't believe." Teresa sat next to him and told everything. Told about Joseph, about the coma, about the 3 impossibilities, about what she had just seen. Brother Alex listened in silence, and when she finished, he said, "Teresa, tomorrow is the 5th day, the last day, the 5th church. And it will be the most important day, because it is the day of yes. You spent 4 days letting go. Tomorrow you will spend a day receiving, and what you receive will change the rest of your life." She went back home, and for the first time in 4 days, went to the hospital, entered Joseph's room. He was there, immobile, connected to tubes and machines. But she didn't feel despair. She felt peace. She approached, held his hand, and whispered, "Joseph, I saw you. I saw you awake. I saw you smiling, and I know it will happen. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I know it will, because God showed me, and He doesn't show to mock. He shows to prepare." November 22nd, 5th day, the last day of the urgent novena. Teresa woke up at 4 in the morning, couldn't sleep anymore, because she knew. She knew that today was the day. The 5th church was the church of the Jesu, the church of the Most Holy Sacrament, the church where the divine dwells permanently. She arrived at 5 in the morning. The church was closed, but the caretaker was opening. He looked at her, and he said, "You're early." She smiled. "I'm on the 5th day." The man nodded. "Then come in, and stay as long as you need." She entered. The church was dark, just a light over the Blessed Sacrament. She walked towards it, knelt. And this time she didn't keep track of time, because the protocol said, on the 5th day, don't count, just stay. Stay until you know you're finished. You'll know, you'll feel when it's time to go. Teresa stayed there, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and didn't feel the time passing, because she was somewhere else. She was in the place between time that Padre Pio had visited. She was in the fissure, and there, in that fissure, she found what she was looking for. She found the answer. The answer wasn't about Joseph waking up or not waking up. The answer was about her, about who she was when God answered yes, and who she would be if God answered no. And she understood. She understood that the true transformation wasn't Joseph being healed. It was her becoming the kind of person who can love independently of the healing, can trust independently of the answer, can live independently of control. She opened her eyes. She didn't know how much time had passed. She looked at the clock. 2 hours and 12 minutes. She had been there for over 2 hours and hadn't even realized it. She got up, and as she turned to leave, she saw something that made her freeze. She saw Lucy, the woman from the 3rd day, the woman whose daughter had leukemia, and Lucy was smiling, smiling with tears in her eyes. Teresa ran to her. What happened? Lucy took Teresa's hands. She woke up. My daughter woke up this morning. The doctors don't understand. The tumor has shrunk 70% in 5 days. 70%. They're calling it spontaneous remission. But I know what it is. It's the novena. It's the urgent mercy. Teresa hugged Lucy, and they both cried together. They cried with joy. They cried with gratitude. They cried because they knew. They knew it wasn't a coincidence. They knew it had worked, not in the way they expected, but in an even better way, because it was real. Teresa left the church. It was noon. Tomorrow would be November 23rd, the most powerful day, the day of the door, and she had done the novena, had paid the price, had gone through the transformation. She was ready, or at least she thought she was, because what would happen in the next 24 hours would be something she could never have imagined. She returned home, opened the door, and found a message on the answering machine. It was from the hospital. The nurse's voice. "Mrs. Lombardi, please call urgently. It's about your husband." Teresa felt her heart race. She picked up the phone, dialed. The nurse answered and said something that Teresa had to ask her to repeat 3 times to be sure she had heard it right. Joseph had woken up. He woke up at 11 o'clock this morning. He's conscious. He's talking. He's asking for you. Teresa dropped the phone, fell to her knees on the floor, and shouted with joy, shouted with relief, shouted with gratitude, because it had happened. It had really happened. The first impossible had become possible. She ran to the hospital, entered the room, and there he was, Joseph, sitting in bed, pale, weak, but awake, alive. He looked at her and said, "Teresa, I saw you. I saw you praying. I saw you every day. I was there, but I wasn't trapped. I was choosing, I was deciding whether to come back or to go. And an angel came. An angel told me that you had released me, that you had said I was free to choose. And that's what made me want to come back, because for the first time, I wasn't coming back out of obligation. I was coming back because I wanted to, because I choose you." Teresa held his hand and cried because she understood. Understood that if she hadn't done the novena, if she hadn't let go, Joseph might never have woken up, because he was trapped by guilt, by obligation, by the fear of leaving her alone, and only when she freed him could he truly choose to come back. Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is the reason why you are watching this today. Today is November 18th, and in 5 days, it will be November 23rd. The most powerful day of the year before Christmas, and you have just received the same protocol that Teresa received. The same 5-day urgent novena that Padre Pio taught. The same last-minute mercy. And maybe you're thinking, "But I don't deserve it. But I didn't do anything during the year. But I woke up too late." And that's exactly why you need to start, because this novena isn't for those who deserve it. It's for those who need it. It's not for those who are prepared. It's for those who woke up late. It's not for the saints. It's for the desperate. Do you have an impossible request? Do you have something that needs to happen and you don't know what else to do? Are you watching the days go by and feeling like you're losing the only chance? Then today is your day. Today is the day to start, because in 5 days, on November 23rd, the door will open and you can be prepared. Or you can be outside looking in. And if you feel that this video came to you exactly now for a reason, if you feel that this revelation about the urgent novena was what your soul needed to hear, if you feel that Padre Pio is interceding for you at this moment, then I invite you to do something that goes beyond just watching. I invite you to become part of this mission, because revealing these truths that the Vatican has kept silent for decades is not easy. Every video like this faces resistance, spiritual resistance, algorithmic resistance, resistance from those who prefer that these last-minute mercies remain hidden. But Padre Pio said something that I never forgot. The truth that sets you free needs soldiers to carry it. And the super thanks down there isn't just a button. It's you saying, "I am one of those soldiers." It's you saying that these revelations need to continue reaching the Teresas, the Lucys, everyone who is desperate and needs to know that they haven't woken up too late, that there is still an urgent mercy, that there is still a crack in the door. And when you click on that golden heart, you're not just supporting a channel. You are becoming an accomplice to miracles. You are funding hope. You are being the hand that holds the ladder for those who are climbing. So, if this video has changed something in you, If it has given you the courage to start the novena today, if it has shown you that there is still time, honor that. Honor it with action. Because faith without action is like a novena without transformation. Beautiful in theory, but empty in practice. Be part of those who keep these revelations alive. Be part of those who ensure that on the next November 18th, another desperate person will find this urgent mercy. Click on Super Thanks. And know that you're not just giving, you are planting the seeds of future miracles. But let's get down to what really matters. How are you going to approach this novena? How are you going to prepare for November 23rd? Because it's not enough just to know. You need to act. And that action starts today, this very day, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, today. Here's the complete protocol for you to begin, right now. First step, grab a piece of paper and write everything down, all your sins, from the very first one you can remember. Don't be afraid, don't be ashamed. No one will read this but you and God, but you need to pull it from the shadows and put it into the light. Because what stays in the dark grows. What goes into the light diminishes, right until it hurts, until you're exhausted, until there's nothing left. And when you're finished, go to a church, today, before the sun sets. Light a blessed candle and burn that paper. Watch every word turn to ash, and when the last word disappears, breathe. Take a deep breath. Because you've just freed yourself from a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. Second step, choose your 3 impossibles. Not 2, not 4, 3. And be honest, be brutally honest. Don't choose what you think God wants you to ask for. Choose what your heart truly desires. Because God isn't impressed with holy requests. God is impressed with true requests. Write each impossible in 1 sentence, a short sentence, direct, without embellishment, and put it inside an envelope. Seal it, and sleep with that envelope under your pillow for the next 5 days. Third step, fast intelligently. Bread and water once a day at sunset. But it's not just fasting from food, it's fasting from control, it's fasting from planning. It's fasting from certainty. Don't plan tomorrow, just live today, hour by hour, moment by moment, because anxiety is the opposite of faith, and you can't have both at the same time. Fourth step, pray the Rosary with intense focus. 15 Hail Marys, 1 for each year that Mary walked on earth before the Annunciation. But 3 minutes each, 3 full minutes, speaking slowly, feeling every word. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. It's not about speed, it's about presence. And if you get distracted, come back. Don't beat yourself up. Just come back, because the important thing isn't to do it perfectly, it's to do it truly. Fifth step, visit 5 churches, 1 each day. On the 18th, a church dedicated to Mary. On the 19th, a church dedicated to the martyrs. On the 20th, a church dedicated to the apostles. On the 21st, a church dedicated to the angels. On the 22nd, a church dedicated to the Blessed Sacrament. And in each church, spend 23 minutes before the Blessed Sacrament. In silence. Don't pray words. Just be. Just breathe, just allow God to speak, because sometimes the greatest prayer is the silence that listens. And when November 23rd arrives, you will be ready, not because you did everything perfectly, but because you went through the transformation, because you were compressed, because you were refined, and because you were made small enough to fit through the crack. And when the door opens, you will enter, and you will receive. You will receive not only what you asked for, but something greater. You will receive the certainty that God hears. You will receive the proof that mercy has no expiration date. You will receive the revelation that waking up late doesn't mean you've missed your chance. Teresa Lombardi is still alive today. She's 83 years old. She lives in Rome with Joseph. They renewed their vows in 1998, 35 years after the 5-day urgent novena. And to this day, every November 18th, she begins again. She starts the 5-day urgent novena, not because she has new impossibles, but because she wants to remember. She wants to remember that her life isn't luck. It's grace. It's mercy. It's an answer. And now you know. You know that there is last-minute mercy. You know that there is a novena for those who woke up late. You know that there is a crack in the door. And the only question that remains is, will you pass through it? Or will you stay outside watching? Type in the comments, "I start today." 3 simple words, but they carry a commitment to transformation, a commitment to the 5 days, a commitment to November 23rd. And when you type it, I will know. I will pray for you. And on November 23rd, when the door opens, you will enter prepared. Because you didn't wake up late. You woke up at the right time, at the exact time, at the only time that matters. Today.